Hi, everybody, and welcome to Module 3. I really enjoyed our last week on reason and emotion, and I'm looking forward to diving into Module 3. So this is the walkthrough for the module. If you'll follow along with me by clicking on the Modules button and then scroll down to Module 3, we're going to begin in the same place that we always do, and that is with our learning pathway. As you can see from our Module 3 title, this is going to be about language and communication. So click on the learning pathway and you will see the overview of what we're going to be talking about this week. In the last module, we talked about the intersection of reason and emotion. We learned how subjective influences and biases make us evaluate judgments. We examined how our feelings and preconceptions and past experiences impact the way we assess and prioritize evidence. And so during that module, you were diving deeper into your own self-awareness and critical thinking abilities. But in this module, we're going to be thinking about language and its various manifestations. We're going to learn some differences between denotative meanings and connotative meanings and review various definitions. Think about rhetorical devices such as euphemism, diaphonisms, and their power of persuasion. So we're going to be studying some different things this week, which I hope you'll find exciting. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the order of operations this week. There are some required readings, which you should do before posting any of your assignments. There are some module notes, as usual, for you to look over. And then we have two discussions, one on language and the self, and one on language and culture. And both of those discussions are due on Thursday, with your replies to your classmates being due on Sunday. And then, as you can see, you have instructions for the Smart Book quiz for Chapter 3 to check your knowledge on the different topics that we're covering. So go ahead and click the next button, and this will dive deeper into what I just summarized. So you can see our required readings this week are some module notes, and then the textbook, and then there are a couple of different videos, which I think that you'll find really intriguing. One of my favorites is The Danger of a Single Story, and I think you will be able to engage a lot with that video and reflect on some of your own experiences of the single story. Go ahead and click the next button, and that will take you to our module notes on language and communication. So it gives you some chapter highlights and things for you to think again. Again, if you're keeping a journal for the class, you might want to think about all of these questions and just write out some preliminary responses to these questions. That'll help get your brain going, and you can brainstorm before you begin to engage with the initial discussion posts. So what are these chapter highlights? You're going to be thinking about primary functions of language, why it's important to pay close attention when evaluating interpretation, definition of words, the rhetorical devices and how they're used, and then what factors influence communication styles. So this is information that you can use in your professional life and your personal life. So be thinking about the way that you use it in both as you're reading through the material this week. Click on the next button, and you'll see that'll take you to our discussion on language and the self. And so you can see the purpose of this activity is to discuss the role of language and communication in critical thinking. So you have some interesting discussion questions below to reflect on. And I would suggest reading through these before you dive into the textbook, just to get an overview of all the different things that you'll want to focus on and pay attention to as you're doing that targeted reading of the textbook. So you will be only choosing one, as usual, of the following discussion questions. And I'm finding that the discussion questions, the ones that are receiving an A and are, really pulling everything they can out of the discussion question happens when we are using the different critical thinking skills of first reflecting, and then critical thinking analysis, and then synthesizing and evaluating that information. And you'll notice on the rubric too, that's what we're looking for in a good post. So maybe dive a little deeper into your thinking about synthesis this week. I mentioned a few things in my wrap-up about synthesis and posted a video. So hopefully you will find that video helpful to you as you begin to combine ideas and dive deeper into the material, thinking about how things connect with one another, connect in your own lives. And that's the really exciting part of learning. So go ahead and scroll down to click on the next button, and you will find that we have our second discussion here that I mentioned, language and culture. And so in our reading this week, we are going to be discussing factors like gender, race, and culture, and how they impact the way we communicate. So we're going to be more aware of our own language styles and the factors that influence them, and how we might be able to improve on our own communication. Again, you'll answer one of the following discussion questions. And I think that these are fun to think about. They have to do with some of our hot topics in society, like euthanasia, narrow-mindedness, animal rights, and so forth. So you'll be familiar with some of these topics. You'll be thinking about how your answer to these topics have been influenced by the environment that you grew up in, your culture, your sex, your background, your gender, and so forth. So make sure to keep a list of those different things that influenced you throughout your life so far. And click on the next button at the bottom of the page, and that will take you to our SmartBook quiz for Chapter 3, which again, as I said, is a knowledge check of all of the material that you found in Chapter 3, and gives you practice for the information that you'll need before we move on to the next set of assignments. So click the next button, and you'll discover that this is the place where you would download Chapter 3 and do that important reading that you'll need to do in order to answer some of these questions. Make sure to incorporate the reading into all of your posts. And I want to see how you're weaving that reading through your posts. So make sure to have in-text citations. If you just have a personal post with a link to the textbook at the bottom, that doesn't really show me how you're engaging with the material. So make sure that you're bringing in quotations and paraphrases and doing your in-text citing so that I can see how you're drawing and bringing all of this information together. I hope you have a great week, and I'm looking forward to our discussions.